From Boss Track, it's Her Hype Squad, a show about amazing women who've made incredible strides as leaders in their industry. They're here to support you and your leadership growth, to encourage you and hype you up as part of your Hype Squad. Hi everyone, this is Michelle Harris bringing you another episode of Her Hype Squad with Boss Track. This week I sat down with Erica Wiederlight, confidence coach and CEO of We The Light. We talk about confidence, the stories we tell ourselves, allowing ourselves to be seen, and our relationship to pleasure. Before we get into our conversation, I'd like to share a little more information about Erica. Erica Wiederlight is the confidence coach who focuses on self-love, sexual empowerment, dating, getting your radiance back, and going from autopilot to thriving. In addition to her coaching practice, she is a professional speaker and podcaster. Her podcast, Welcome to The Wiederlife, is a top-rated podcast across many categories, including divorce, love, sexuality, yoga, dating, coaching, and marriage. She's been featured in over 100 other podcasts, in addition to being a wellness expert at New York Fashion Week, the UN, and in publications such as Epoch Times, Galore, and Cosmopolitan magazine. If you enjoy my conversation with Erica, be sure to subscribe to our channel and help more people find us by sharing this episode with others or by leaving a review. Or subscribe to our weekly newsletter filled with things we found that we're excited about and were inspired by, along with valuable leadership advice to watch, listen to, or read. It's a little bit of joy for your inbox each Monday. You can subscribe at www.thebosstrack.com/weeklyjoy. Now, without further delay, here's my conversation with Erica Wiederlight. Hi, Erica. I'm so happy to have you on our podcast today. I'm really looking forward to our discussion. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited. This is going to be so much fun.
This is like a topic that is really close to my heart, especially when we talk about women leaders. And this is, it's related to confidence and how we feel about ourselves and how we come to the table. And I just feel sometimes that there is a switch that I wish that we could just like flip to give everybody that sense of accomplishment and confidence. But anyway, I don't want to get into it yet because I'd want to start out by having you introduce yourself to the audience, a little bit about what you do and your background, if you don't mind sharing.
Of course. Yeah. So my name is Erica Wiederlight, as you have mentioned, and I like to call myself the confidence coach because I have worked in the life coach field for so many years. And it's funny. It's like I've done so many different topics, and they still, they bleed into each other, whether it be sexual empowerment, embodiment, self-love. And I kept seeing over the years, we were hit with the same thing. And people would walk in the door, like I said, whether it's sexual empowerment, it's money, it's relationships, it's asking for a raise. We couldn't get past this confidence thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a common theme that we all need. And as you know, it's a relationship. It's not like I was talking to a client last night and they're like, sometimes I wish it was 1, 2, 3, boom, I did it, I have it, and for so many of us, that's like an awakening of like, I finally got my confidence back, but it is a relationship. And that for me, I was like, I want to be there for folks to help them to get there, but also to help them sustain that relationship as life ebbs and flows. So that's kind of how I got to the confidence coaching piece, because I was in traditional life coaching for so many years. And I kept hitting this. And I've been very blessed, and you'll read this in my bio, and we've talked about this, that my work has been featured all over the place and in podcasts, and my podcast, as well as I was blessed to be a speaker at New York Fashion Week, UN, and articles published in Cosmo, Epoch Times, and Galore magazine. So I feel very blessed because we all need this. Like this conversation is truly for all.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to start by talking about defining confidence, like what does that mean? But I also want to say, exactly what you said about sustaining it because somebody can be confident and they can have a career, they have a role, they're very confident in how they feel, but just kind of going to my from my own experience, when you step into a whole different world, like for me, leaving corporate and going into an starting my own business, it's like everything is so different and like your confidence can wobble a little bit. So it's not even like, flip the switch, I'm confident. Like that can ebb and flow based on what's happening in your careers or what's happening in your life as
Yeah.
well. And so it's so important.
It is. I want to mention too, I'm like, oh, I actually have never really articulated this in a public setting, but I think just said that so beautifully. And it's so true. I always talk about like people's bodies change like naturally. And what does that mean? Like at that size or that look, what is your confidence? Like there's a lot of like a job, there's a lot of exterior factors where our relationship to confidence changes. But something that I also work with clients is like that big broad stroke of like life events and how we readjust our relationship to it, but also those mini moments. Like when we're walking through life, like this is a silly example, but pretend here I am now working from home. How am I showing up? I may show up very differently going out to dinner with my partner or being in a setting with new friends. Like that is also, so it's a broad stroke, if that makes sense, like a broad stroke relationship to like how I'm showing up for confidence, but it's also those micro moments of how am I showing up in the mundane with different circumstances. And something I always have to do too is like come back and check myself and be like, hey, E, where are you? Like, where are you? Are you okay? What do you need? Because our confidence, like you said, also shifts depending on situations too.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. So going back to that, so before we get too far down the road, not to go off on a tangent again, but we have a program, a quarterly program where it's a leadership accelerator program. And one of the weeks, so it's 8 weeks, we have different modules. One of our weeks is completely on confidence. And every time, we go into that course or that module again, I do a review. And I was just reviewing it for this quarter. And like, oh, I feel like there's different levels to confidence, or confidence can mean different things. So, like, how do you define confidence? Like, to set the audience up for this hour discussion or so that we talk, like, how do you define confidence?
Oh, I love that. And I love this question. I also think it's important for all of us to redefine it ourselves because I think it's this like elusive sometimes, and people are like, I think I am, So I think that's like genius that you asked that question. And I think it's important for us all to articulate it ourselves and what that looks like for ourselves. So it's not like this floating elusive thing. And we're like, oh wait, no, I actually am showing up confident. For me, it's unapologetically showing up as myself truthfully and allowing myself to be seen and witnessed. And of course that in itself takes a lot of work, about being safe to do that, but it's really allowing myself to show up, be seen, and not consistently editing myself or ripping myself apart through self-judgment and negative self-talk.
Yeah. Oh, I love that way of thinking about it. When you think about how you're defining it in that way, and you said you talk to you coach different people and you have different clients that you work with. What are some of the misconceptions they come in with sometimes about what confidence is?
Yes. Okay, that's so good. Because the thing is, like, I'm so glad you asked that. Because sometimes in the beginning, when I didn't define it, there was a sense of wrongness that they were doing it wrong, or it should look like this. So I would have folks be like, shouldn't I be, I don't know, making something up, but like, shouldn't I be just like wearing wild colors and just being so, taking up space and just being whatever the story is for each person. And I'm like, that's one version. Love that. But like, what is your truth? So for
Mhm.
me, that's why I'm like, we have to articulate it ourselves. And also, I think it's great so we know where we want to go. But it's also great because then we come up with the stories or the resistances why we shouldn't be confident.
Mm.
Right? Because we hold a lot of stories of like, ugh, you don't want to be looked at as arrogant. You don't want to be looked at like, so I do that for, those twofold reasons is one, we could articulate where are we going? What is your flavor? What is your truth for you? So we're going towards that instead of just airy fairy. And then the second is what are the resistances? What are the stories that tell you you shouldn't, you can't, it's bad if you want that or if you go after that. And it's so refreshing. People are like, oh, it's not this like wild archetype. They especially when you articulate, you're like, oh, it's not this like wild archetype, and I don't need to be, this totally different person. It gives people a lot of peace that like, oh, this is achievable and like this is totally in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Do you have exercises you go through? Like, what is the process for deciding what is somebody's truth? Like, how do they dig that out of themselves?
Ooh, yes. I do a lot of somatic embodiment work, like a huge part of my practice. I do some talk therapy, but a lot of embodiment. So I sometimes ask my clients like questions from their brain. So, and I'm like, okay, like let's try to, pull some thoughts from our head. But really, what I always try to do is get them into their body.
Hmm.
So that could be things like visualizations, meditations, movement, because our intuition lives there and it's more natural for them to, and I always have people do a visualization or meditation and they're like, and after they pop open their eyes and we talk and they're like, what? They're like, I couldn't even like, I couldn't have made that up if I tried. So I like to honor both. I think there's a place for both, but I do try to get to the body to have them answer from those places.
What does that look like? I mean, if you
Yeah.
guide somebody through that, like if I close my eyes and I went through this meditation to figure out like who am I, what can that look like for somebody? I'm curious.
Yeah, it's totally different. And it's pretty intuitive and it's different what we're working on. But something general is I usually help people find, like, pretend they're closing their eyes. I help them guide like to an archetype, or we'll say the confidence archetype. Like I'll walk them through and have them say things like, what do they look like? What do they feel like? How do
Mm.
they show up? And I just have them start to describe, and I say, it's okay if nothing's coming up. Because sometimes we're
Mm.
like, wait, what? So
Yeah.
it's okay if nothing's coming up. This is a time for us to play and use our imagination. And usually it's funny. People are like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do it. And they do. And they're like, I didn't even have to make that up. And it's cool if you have to make it up. But we kind of go through like, who is that version of you?
Hmm.
And like I said, usually it shocks people because it isn't anything wild or totally inaccessible. It's like, oh, that was right here all along, which
Yeah.
is really beautiful. They feel like, oh, it's not this like thing that I have to hunt for and it's so outside of myself. It's super empowering. That's like, wait, it's right here. I just need to tap back into that, which is what I'm there
Hmm.
for, helping them get back to that.
Yeah. And you mentioned something just a few minutes ago about arrogance. And one of the things that I find when I talk to people about confidence is that feeling of being, and I think you said the same thing about feeling like they're being overly confident and arrogant. And I find that that's really hard for people that are questioning that to actually get to. I think they step out of their comfort zone and exhibit confidence and then probably feel like they're being arrogant themselves, but I think they're really still far away from like crossing that line into arrogance. Where do you think we can cross that line? Well, how do you think about arrogance and what that
Yeah.
really looks like?
Yeah. I think you brought up something so great too, is like, if you're asking like, am I going to be arrogant? Usually you won't, because you, and so I'm like, that's a key factor. I'm like, yeah, when people say like, what if I'm going to be, I'm like, the fact that you're thoughtful of like other humans. And that's kind of how I wanted to answer this is, for me, confidence, real confidence, dims no one else's shine. Like
Hmm.
when I am in my confidence, I really actually have more to give. I have more overflow to give, where I'm like, I want to ride, I want to cheerlead. I want to bring people up. So I think I love how you articulated that it's like, if you're already questioning, like, will I be arrogant? Usually you won't. But for me, the
Hmm.
real sense of confidence is I am allowing myself to be seen. I am in my truth and I help others make that safe, because I think that, right, the arrogance thing is one. I also think there's a safety. I actually was talking about this with a client the other day. Like, there's a safety piece. Like, what
Mm.
if I am so shiny, sparkly? And there's a great quote about this, but what if I am so shiny, sparkly, fabulous? And our brains are like, oh, I want to be shiny. I want to be sparkly. I want to be
Yeah.
fabulous. But it's vulnerable because we're more, how do I say, like on stage or seen or taking up space. It feels like there's more vulnerability for us to be attacked
Hmm.
or criticized or shut down. So we have a kind of a collective story of just put your head down and keep it moving. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
just like you could be fabulous, but be like fabulous and then come back down. And I'm not saying, you know, yeah, there's a nuance to that conversation, but I think that's a big thing that I hear a lot is the uh-oh, am I going to be arrogant? But uh-oh, I'm scared. Like it
Mm.
feels scary in my body to take up space, to be successful. And I think that goes back to what I talked about, but also like our sense of belonging in our families, in our communities. Sometimes if we're like, pretend I am making great money or I am happy, will I still belong?
Mm.
Will people still love me? So it's deep, it's funny because people are like, oh, confidence is this, whatever, fake it till you make it. It's like, sure, that's an element. But this really kind of triggers a lot of deep stuff like belonging and safety and kindness in our community. Like it hits a lot of different points. So it's big
Yeah.
work when we take the path of I'm allowing myself to be seen and vulnerable and my confidence. It's a big, I always say to my clients, like, pat yourself on the back because it's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that aspect of safety. It's so true.
Yeah.
And I think probably social media magnifies that times 1,000 versus, I mean, if you're on social media, not everybody is, but it creates that vulnerability and people are just so open to giving feedback, whether it's good or bad. And, that bad can be hard to see. So just, this is a world where that is even more scary, I think.
It's true. It's true. It's
Mhm.
and we see people all of the time. Even if we don't engage in it, we see, oh my gosh, this person's getting ripped apart, or it's
Yeah.
just like, ugh, like it's yeah, it's become even more scary to allow ourselves to be seen. And so
Yeah.
that's why, it sounds like confidence, schmonfidence, like whatever, like so such a silly, but it's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
Yeah. So to put some context around this, like what are some reasons that people come to you and say, I need help with building my confidence? Where are they identifying in their life where this is something they need to work on?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, everywhere.
Hmm.
Like, so I'm kind of rolling through my current Rolodex of clients, and I'm like, okay, this wonderful person, it's at work, this person, it's sexually, this person, their body changed because they gave birth. Like, I'm kind of going through the list, and it's across the board.
Hmm.
And you know the deal. We love to think we can compartmentalize, and to a certain extent, we can. And so much of this bleeds over. So sometimes if I see someone like, oh, my body looks different, I'm insecure, I do sometimes see that them bleeding over into other areas of their life, which
Hmm.
is normal. But I think that's fabulous. And that's why I say celebrate yourself that you're willing to do this work because it's not just, oh, it's just in this one area. It's like it it bleeds into other spaces.
Yeah, no, I completely, I mean, I can self-identify with that as I'm getting older and going through those
Yeah.
changes myself. And, your body changes as you get into your midlife. And it does have an impact. You have to really reflect and identify and ask where things are coming from and just be very self-aware. So I completely, I'm can identify with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we all can, especially the body stuff, that we're naturally,
Mm.
God willing, knock on wood, we're gonna change.
Mhm.
And it's we're not taught this,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it really is a relationship. And I don't want to get too far into story, but a huge part of my embodiment work that I teach about is I genuinely have been every size, genuinely every size, every dress size. And, I feel very blessed in a way that I got to do this work at every different size, because it was like a fast track to, being with myself, accepting myself in every different facet of who I am. But I want to name that we don't talk about that a lot. Sometimes it shocks us when our body looks different, or we operate in the world differently, but it's that confidence is always a relationship that we want to have there.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. You said you don't want to share stories, but I love stories. And
Okay,
I was
great.
I was actually going to ask you if you might share, if thinking about one of your clients, and obviously not naming names, or you maybe even changing some of the details, but somebody who maybe was an corporate executive leader. Can you talk about what a transformation might have looked like for somebody, and kind of giving an overview from start to finish?
Yes. Ooh, I'm going through a few amazing people. Well, I'll give a general first, because I think the first thing that really comes to mind is, especially when I work with executives, this is a big one. It's the confidence piece, but it's also the pleasure piece.
Mm.
It's the put your head down, like we talked about, put your head down, work. And you've talked about this so many times. It brings the burnout. So for
Mm.
me, with executives, I'm like, yes, like I can't wait to talk to my folks in corporate and in the business world, or they're, own their own business. I love talking to people in this community, because I really want to hold them through not burning out, through
Mm.
how can you make your work pleasurable for me. And I mention this because my relationship to pleasure is the thing that blew open my confidence,
Mm.
blew it open, because I went to therapy, which was fabulous. I'm very grateful for those opportunities, but I went to therapy, I had coaches. It helped, it progressed me. But me having a relationship to my pleasure, oh my gosh, like it knocked it out of the park. And I'll give a one sentence, I suppose, reason why is I was so more focused, not from a self-centered place, but I was more focused on like, what do I need? What feels good? Again, from a healthy, aligned place, versus being outside of my body and being like, is everyone judging me? Like getting out of that anxious mind, like, am I doing okay? Being outside of myself to, hey, what do you need? How can I support you? Follow what what turns you on. And that means like, what brings me joy? What makes me
Yeah.
feel alive? And I say that because it feels selfish, but honestly, what it is you're self-resourced. And when you're self-resourced, you are in your highest form of integrity, because you're not doing, and it's okay if we do, but like we're not doing like swarmy stuff where we're trying to get from others, or we're pulling from our partners, or we're showing up in a weird energy. I was operating from being a fully resourced human, and I knew how to genuinely take care of myself.
Mm.
So I showed up in integrity, and I showed up from a place of confidence, because I'm like, I know myself, I know how to hold myself. So I just want to like voice that, because some people are like,
Yeah.
pleasure, confidence, question mark, what's the correlation? I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a huge correlation. So that's the big picture with some of my executive folks. Smaller picture, and I have a lot of great people that I'm working with. One I'm thinking about right now is really having her identify her flavor of confidence. And we talked for a while. She got lost in the archetype of like, this is what a boss is, this is how a boss shows up in the world. And she was like, this isn't my truth. And
Mm.
so for a while we got her to a place where she's like, this is how I show up as a leader, this is how I show up and move the crowd and move the audience. And that was magnetic,
Mm.
because I was like, I see you now. Before she was like trying to contort herself into something of like, oh, this is what boss babe or whatever should look like. She's like, I hate this. And now that we've really identified like what her truth is, what her flavor is, how she genuinely wants to show up in the world, oh my gosh, like the deals that she's gotten, the investments, like it's blown up, because people are like, I see you. I don't see a facade, like I see you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been like, I could give many examples, but that I think has been so beautiful to watch someone make that transition.
Yeah. Since you're not naming names, do you think she would mind if you shared how she wanted to show up as, because I think that's so important, because that's something, again, we talk to a lot of people about, is our model is authentic leadership. So leadership we don't want the traditional, how you think of what a leader should be. We want people to be their true selves. And like, it'll be great for people to hear an example of somebody else thinking about, like, I don't want to be that traditional, like, this is what is true to me, this is how I want to show up. And what did that look like for her?
Yeah, I think it honestly was across the board. I'll start with something as silly as what she would wear to conferences.
Mm.
And this was a big one we worked on, how she thinks her body should look like
Mm.
as a business owner, and especially a very successful business owner. She had to work through, like, oh, as a business owner of this degree, my body should look like this. As a business owner to this degree, my wardrobe should look like this.
Mm.
And she's like, and she, how do I say this? Like, she wasn't showing up as her truth. So she was one of thousands,
Yeah.
still a fabulous being, but like one of thousands, because she was like, and she felt suffocated by this like narrative that was put on her, like, I should wear the blazer, whatever, the this and that. She was like,
Yeah.
I hate this. And so it's a simple start, but we worked on her relationship to her body, even how she was showing up, expressing herself, whether it be clothes or makeup or no makeup, no whatever, however that wanted to come through. And then also, honestly, it bled into how she, in her business, how she markets, how she speaks, how she talks to, it's genius, how she talks to investors, how she shows up. She thought she had to show up like, it should look like this and should be militant. And for some people, that's fabulous. Like, that's their truth. We love that. But that wasn't how she wanted to show up in the world. And when she leaned into her flavor, which is more like conversational and one-to-one and genuine, she has a huge mission, like genuinely coming from that heart-led place. Oh my God, people were like, where have you been? She's like, now
Yeah.
everyone's saying, where have you been? She's like, I've been here for years. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I've been here for years. But they finally could see her. And they're like, where have you been? Where have you been? And she's like, oh my gosh, it was the most stereotypical thing ever, but like, I just had to be myself.
Mm.
Easier said than done, because we have a lot of conditioning and things around us being ourselves. But that is a small example, but it kind of influenced how she does business, how she does life, and how she shows up in the
Mm.
world.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that example. And I did want to go back to something you mentioned about pleasure. So I just want to dig a little deeper into that, because and you said it, pleasure doesn't necessarily mean, when we think of like sexual pleasure or
Right.
whatever, like there is the taking pleasure in different things, like taking
Yeah.
pleasure in doing my job, and what does that look like? How do you help people think about that? There are these different aspects of life where we can actually feel joy in or pleasure, that it doesn't have to be routine, mundane. I'm curious how you think about that.
Oh, this is my favorite. I think my favorite topic. So I always talk about pleasure not as a tool to bypass, not, excuse me, as a tool to bypass, right? Like, sometimes it is not appropriate, or sometimes we really need to feel the feels. And
Mm.
how I use pleasure is not from that bypassy place. Like, everything's okay, find the joy. It's like, sometimes, we got to
Yeah.
feel the feels, and there's stuff we have to, sift and sort. So it's not from, I like to put that disclaimer, it's not from that bypassy place. However, like you nailed and you articulated so beautifully, a lot of us walk through the world on autopilot,
Mm.
like just on autopilot. And I talk to people all the time, and they're like, oh yeah, like not even consciously knowing. And they'll be like, oh yeah, every Tuesday I have a turkey, like, which is fine. Like, every Tuesday I have a turkey sandwich. And then I go to the same yoga class, which again, that's all cool. And people start to notice, oh my gosh, like, I am not alive in a way that I would like to be. So, like you said, I actually, and especially clients that want to work on the sexual stuff, I don't even touch the sexual stuff for a moment. I go to pleasure in the here and now. So that's the five senses. So that's just like, can you enjoy drinking your kombucha? That's my favorite example, but can you like really be present to the kombucha? Can you really be present to the music that you're listening to? Like, I want to make a safe space for those five senses. Eventually we'll talk about the sexual stuff, but just having pleasure in our lives. Because here's the deal. I think it's a beautiful correlation is pleasure. I could talk about for 5 hours, but I'll go to this. Pleasure teaches our brain and our body and our nervous system and all the fabulous things that like it's safe to have good things.
Mm.
It's like telling our body, it's telling our brain like, oh, I could enjoy this kombucha. Oh, like, and it's kind of stacks and builds that evidence within our body and within ourselves that like it's okay. So when we get a huge sale, when we get a huge investment, we're not like, aha, I'm burning through this, or I'm, like I don't know how to hold this. This feels so threatening to my body and my system. We know how to hold it. We're like, great. It's like we've been training for this. We're like, I know how to do this. Like, I deserve this. I'm worthy of this. But for me, I'm obsessed with the pleasure for the mundane. And so I have my clients all the time. I have them check in regularly, sometimes putting on alarms or whatever, and check in with themselves and be like, where am I? Right? Like it's so easy to be like, I just the day, like, where am I? So it's where am I? And I have them do a scale, like, am I feeling crunchy and contorted? And that's okay. Sometimes that's natural. Or am I feeling pretty radiant, turned on? Turned on meaning alive, present, conscious, all that stuff. And if they're crunchy, I'm like, great. How can we add one, two, just a dash more pleasure to this? So it's not like I expect you to be like, I'm turning off my laptop and I'm going on vacation. Like, no, we're humans. We have to pay bills. Like, but like, okay, if you have crazy things to do, you're doing documents and you have a crazy workday ahead. Great. I'm not saying burn it down, but can you get that favorite cup of tea? Can you put on opera or whatever you like in the background? Can you light your favorite candle? Like, can we just add a dash more? I always say it's like a barometer, like we're just turning it up just like a dial or two, because then you feel more like present to your own life. You don't feel like what just happened? 3 months just went by. What happened? Like you feel like you're more in your own story than life just picked up and took you with the wind. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So do you find you have to help people, even going back to the very basics, to understand what it is that actually brings them joy? Like what are those things that they can bring into
Yes.
their day that will bring that joy?
100%. And I think there's a lot of learning and unlearning. I actually just talked to a friend about this. She's also a pleasure coach. She's in this world as well. She was on my podcast and we were talking about sometimes like the Instagrammable self-love is like put on a sheet mask, do a bubble bath. And she was talking, she's like, those are like kind of dopamine hits. We love that, like it's great because it's telling us like we're worthy and deserving and we want those things. And that's a little bit different than deep self-love, deep pleasure. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes we have to track like, okay, this pleasure, like me putting on this lip gloss, it's an exterior pleasure, but that's okay. So I think there's a really deep relationship. My teacher, Mama Regina Thomashower, she said, and I remember being like, yeah, like so ignorantly. But she was like, pleasure is the easiest thing to conceptually understand, but practicing it daily, making it a discipline is so challenging. And I was like, so easy, so easy. And just like the confidence stuff, working through the confidence and the relationship with confidence, talk about stories. There's so many resistances and stories around pleasure. It's disgusting. You'd need to work hard to get a treat. You don't deserve it. Put your head down, like blood, sweat, and tears. Like it's not appropriate. It's not worthy. Like talk about working through stories. Like, wow. Like before I even jump in with pleasure with clients, I'm like, what stories do you hold around pleasure or feeling good or feeling your aliveness? Like, let's kind of comb through those cobwebs before we jump into the pleasure pool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's so when you talk about like those dopamine hits, like, okay, putting on a sheet mask or whatever, in my mind, there's something different. There's the little like one-off things you can do that
Yeah.
give you that little tiny, like, oh, I feel good, like lighting that candle.
Yeah.
And then there's this whole deeper meaning, like deeper pleasure. Is it okay I mean, it's okay to have those things
Yes,
that you can bring
please.
into your day. Yeah.
Yes, of course. And it's funny. I was talking. I was like, oh, I kind of contradicted myself. But yes, both. And it's a multi-layered. relationship, they always say that pain, of course, has limits, right? Like there's only a certain amount of pain that we can sustain in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Pleasure, it's kind of especially that we haven't really researched this that deeply. I mean, there is, but it's kind of we're poking around in the dark here. Pleasure doesn't have those limits that pain does.
Mm-hmm.
So pleasure can be putting on the lip gloss, or pleasure can be, I do deserve a sheet mask, or my pleasure recently, and I don't even want to call it guilty pleasure because I think it feeds into the story, but my pleasure is like, I sometimes do want to do some paperwork with Vanderpump Rules or Bravo TV. I know it's the worst, but
Yeah.
I want something in the back. And it's a multi-layered relationship. While I'm doing that, I also make time for that internal pleasure. And that really internal pleasure for me is just like having that self-talk, following my intuition, following, corny, but following my soul. So it's not one is better or one is worse, but in my opinion, in my belief system, I really have seen that there is external pleasures, internal pleasures. Not one is wrong or bad or more spiritual or less spiritual. It's just, what are we jamming with today? You know what I mean? Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
totally cool and sometimes we don't have the space and capacity to like go deep inward. And sometimes like it's a candle today,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
sometimes like I actually been avoiding myself. Like I do need to go inward and check in with my soul. So it's multi-layered, and not one is wrong or bad or right and wrong.
Yeah. And you brought up pain, and I don't know if you talk about this or if it comes up at all, but I think I've learned over the years that people will do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. Do you talk about that at all? Is there any insight you can provide around that?
That's so good. Yeah, I think what I want to kind of bring back is we're so resistant to pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Mm-hmm.
so and I think you actually absolutely nailed it. Like we are running from our pain, and we're avoiding. And I think that's why part of the pleasure is us being in our highest integrity, because we could be with ourselves. We could be with what's going on internally. But I
Mm-hmm.
think I kind of want to bring it back to what we just said. Yeah, that's so good. I'm so glad you bring that up. I'm like, wow, my brain's like boom, 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 boom. The resistance to pleasure is so big.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, again, like we have things like so many different avoidance tactics. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
I see myself tracking, and I'm like, okay, I'm eating these treats because I'm avoiding, I don't want to deal with this pain that's going on in my life, so we do, the deal, we do that through an assortment of ways to numb, whether it's food, whether it is 7 hours of Bravo, whether it is alcohol or drugs, or set, like we do find ourselves, or numbing, doom scrolling. There's so many ways that we do avoid, and honestly that's a big part of my work too, is being and teaching folks like how they can make their emotions safe and working through them, because it
Yeah.
would be so uh messy and not me in integrity if I just taught people pleasure and confidence and didn't address the shadow and the other feelings. Like
Yeah.
it would be so bypassy, or it would be so not of service, I should say, if I was like pleasure, 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 confidence, 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 but didn't create a space for them to talk about their rage or their grief or their frustration or their fear. I really genuinely, that quote, like, to which you own your darkness, you own your light.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true. And so that's why, for me, I think that's the internal pleasure. The internal turn on is creating that space where you can be with your darkness.
Yeah.
You can be with all your, cruddy, quote unquote, emotions. When you could be with that, wow, you could be in your light, you could be in your radiance, you could be in your turn on, your pleasure. So that, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is a big part of my work. And I think there's a misconception sometimes, for my work or any of pleasure people, that, oh, I'm going to sign up with Erica, or I'm going to sign up with this coach, and I'm going to be, hitting the streets with boas and glitter in my hair. And I'm like, listen, we will, like, that's great. You know what I mean? Like, and they're like, why am I not on, like, I should be on cloud nine all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, the deal, to have a relationship with pleasure and radiance and turn on, we also need to look at the other stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm really actually thank you so much for voicing that because I think that's an important part of the combo.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for expanding on that. And there's actually, I mean, I do want to get into a few questions that are kind of outside of this conversation, but I did want to ask you, and you mentioned a little bit earlier, what are some things that cause us to lack confidence? I mean, it can go back to, there's a book called The Confidence Code where they talk about all the things like how we're brought up as girl. Like I'm talking specifically about women. I know men can have issues with confidence as well, and they have periods of time too where they can feel. But talking about women, how we're raised as girls. I mean, that kind of is the beginning, right? But then there's the society issues, like even as we get older. Like, what do you feel are the big drivers of women's general lack of confidence?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And I think it's perpetuated every day. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I know I'm joking, I'm watching Vanderpump Rules as I work, but also deep down that is I'm sure it's I have to catch myself because if I don't it's easy to be like, "Oh, that person got this work." And that's fabulous. If that makes you feel good, I really genuinely totally support that, but there is it's how do I say re-triggering that story of you should look like this, you should act like this, should. So we are being blasted by this on the reg. And I have to
Mhm.
consciously be like, all right, I'm buying into this for now. Like I'm choosing this as an entertainment. I'm not going to take this on. And again, easier said than done. It sometimes falls into the subconscious, but like I have to track myself because if
Mhm.
I don't, all of a sudden I'm like, why am I cranky? What happened to my self talk this week? So we're blasted, whether it be media, social media, just how we live, the shoulds that we all have agreed on, like
Mhm.
subconsciously. And here's the thing too that my teacher again, Mama Gina Regina Thomas Shower, teaches is she teaches the tool of essentially it's celebration, but she calls it bragging.
Mhm.
And I sometimes say celebration to my clients because sometimes they're like, no. But why she says bragging is because it's like, huh, it has like a little bit of an edge to it because so many people, especially women, we bond, which is great that we have that community, but we bond in our misery.
Mhm.
And that's great because sometimes it's good. Like, thank you for seeing me. Thank you for hearing me. But it's sometimes it turns to a point where it's like, what's wrong with, I mean, it's the example, I don't know why this came to me, but like in Mean Girls, when they're all ripping each other apart, like, oh, I hate this about myself. I hate this. But like, we have this thing where that's how we sometimes bond immediately with other women. Even notice like if someone's like, oh, I love your how you got your haircut. Oh, no. Or oh, I love your shirt. No, I got it on sale at TJ Maxx. It's not that big of a deal. It's like we like it's so normal for so many women to deflect,
Mhm.
but to bond together, and I think it's a safety thing, but to bond together over our wrongness. And oh no. And so why bragging is a powerful tool is it's allowing ourselves to be seen in our celebration. For a lot of this, like we talked about before, it feels really scary because, like, what if things are going okay? Or what if I'm proud of myself? That feels very edgy because it goes back to like to when we're children. Like, will I be bullied? Well, I'm being seen, and so we do. A lot of times, I do see women shrinking and bonding over the wrongness of themselves, then celebrating themselves, and also being like, great, now celebrate you. I mean, I
Yeah.
brought these tools to so many of my women friends that are not in this world, and they're like, what? And then they're also like, that is so powerfully healing because I know I have great relationships with women, but we always do kind of bond on our wrongness. And when you start to
Mhm.
track it, you're like, whoa, like we really do focus on that and focus on other women's wrongness too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. That's so true. You're so right. And that's why, we created her hype squad because we wanted to change that. We wanted to be like, okay, women are getting together and celebrating each other and hyping each other up, and that kind of changing that narrative. And one of the things that's so important as a leader is we tend to think that just by doing a good job everybody's going to see it, and we keep our heads down, we do what needs to be, is asked of us and what needs to be done, we hit our goals. But which is great. And but that's just the baseline, especially in corporate, that bragging, that celebrating, telling people about, what you accomplished and what you're doing. Like, we just need to get so much better at doing that, because men don't have a problem with that. They do that all the time. And, they won't hold back. And sometimes we as women, I'm guilty of this, especially early in my career. I look at, like, who is he? Like, that I didn't think that was that big of a deal. I mean, kind of going back to what you're in, but then, you see this person like climbing
Yes.
the ladder, and you're like, okay, this is, you need to do it. I mean, whether you feel comfortable, you have to get comfortable. And I don't know, like, if you have any thoughts on how women can start to get comfortable on bragging, or, maybe rethinking about it and saying, celebrating my accomplishments by communicating
Yes.
them. I don't know.
Yes. Okay, I'm so glad you brought this up, because that's one of like my first things that I do in my sessions. And every session we start with brags or celebrations. And it's funny, I have to like untrain people in this, but they're like, it's interesting tracking what women count as celebrations. Like the expectations that they should win a Nobel Peace Prize every week. You know, like I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
what? So I actually, and they're like, no, I actually lovingly, gently push them to, of course, please celebrate these huge celebrations with me, but like, can we celebrate what you think is not a celebration? Because we just take it for granted. And we're like, oh yeah, of course, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. And I really try to hold them through like what they perceive as small and medium and then large. Because here's the thing, then we become desensitized.
Mm.
And that's the direct correlation to pleasure. We're so desensitized to ourselves. We're so desensitized to the planet, to experiences,
Mm.
to like being present in the moment. And here's another thing too, when we are desensitized, when we get the thing, right? Whether it's like, I get the partner or I get the raise, by then we're desensitized. So it's not, we think, oh my gosh, it's going to change everything. And we're like, okay, like that was
Mm.
cool.
Yeah.
What's next? Because we aren't familiar with celebrating. So when we're celebrating, even the silly things of, and this is not even silly, but I woke up, thank God, I woke up this morning and we could just say that's a celebration, but
Yeah.
I did, like that's in itself, but I moved my body for 5 minutes. If we know how to celebrate those types of things, when you get the promotion, oh my gosh, it starts to frame, you start to see yourself in a different way of like, wait, go me. And
Yeah.
not from that arrogant place, but like, I have endured a lot, I am worthy and deserving of good things. Like the confidence is directly, and the self-love really is directly correlated to how much we can celebrate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting in the beginning when I have clients sign on, they're like, I didn't do anything tremendous this week, and I'm like, okay, like let's go through your week. And I'm like, what? Like, this is fabulous. And they're like, oh, like they start to see themselves like they would see
Mm-hmm.
someone else. If they saw someone else living this way, they'd be like, yes, get it. But we are our harshest critic, and we have that perfectionism, or that like more is ingrained in so many of us.
Yeah, that's so true. And I love that because, it's not only, so I say, we need to start bragging, we need to start communicating, but you're so right that we need to first identify what it is that we even are going to brag about. Because if we're not even seeing it as an accomplishment, like how, so it's like, go back a step further. Let's try to figure out, how do we identify our accomplishments and see them for what they are, and celebrate them ourselves first, and then communicate them to the people around us.
Exactly. And also that you nailed that too. Like, then we feel safe to
Mm.
like, if we do pretend want to bring it to a partner or friends, we have to be, we need to make it safe within ourselves of like, yes, I did that. And then we could share it with them. And that's where we are operating from our integrity, because we celebrated it. We digested it. We don't need the validation from others, though it's like we need that as humans, but like we don't need it to survive, right? Because you could pretend you get that bonus, and you're like, I've been waiting for this, I've been waiting for this, and you bring it to your best friend, and she's just like, she's going through a lot, she can't, and she's like, yay, or, but how do I say this, like, isn't properly giving you, quote unquote, the reaction or the validation you wanted. You're
Yeah.
like, great, you know what I mean? So it's like, it really, this work is truly the highest form of integrity because you process, you celebrate, you're like, yes. And it's just a cherry on top that you can bring it to your friend and celebrate that with her. And you're like, look, and but you don't need it. It's not the driving force, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I totally understand and
Yeah.
appreciate that. And it's so true. You need to feel it yourself because you might not get it from those people around you. And it's okay that you don't because they're going through their own things and you never know how you're hitting somebody from day to day.
Right.
Um, and I realize we're running out of time a little bit. So I'd like to kind of switch over because I feel like, I mean, you said you could talk about pleasure for 5 hours. I mean, I could talk about all this, we could go into the late evening talking about all this, I think. But I'd love to ask you a few of the standard questions we like to ask all of our guests, if you're okay with
Please.
switching. Okay. So with Boss Track, we're all about mentorship. That's the foundation of who we are. That's why we do this podcast. Well, I'd love to know from you, is there a mentor that you look back to that has like really impacted your career and brought you to where you are today?
Oof. Honestly, I feel blessed to say there's so many.
Mm,
And I feel like I could individually go through, but I feel blessed, and I blessed that I had that, and I also feel blessed that I believe in that I'm like
mm.
surround myself with people that uplift me. So I feel, if I take a step back, I see kind of like a community, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And I love that saying of surround yourself with the 5 people that you want to be or something like that.
Yeah,
I know I'm not saying that right, but it is so true.
it
Uh,
is. It is. I feel very lucky that I'm like, wow, so many people have mentored and influenced me in different ways.
yeah. And you talked a little bit about moving in the morning, but is there a routine that you have to follow morning, evening, afternoon, whatever during the day that, you attribute your well-being to?
I love rituals. So I love it. And I had to track myself because I would be like, if I didn't have time that day or there's crazy circumstances, I noticed, and my clients had done this too, like I noticed I would wrong myself and be like, the day is over. You're uh-oh, because you didn't do this routine. So honest answer is yes. And I've had to be cool if life happens and I
Hmm.
miss it, which has been a lot for me. Like I had to get away from my perfectionism and be kind to myself. But I really attribute the work to the work. You know what I mean? So I consciously every day make time for the work, whether it is in the evening before I go to bed, the afternoon. But for me, morning, I personally love morning. Just like that's just how I operate as a human because I'm like, yes, it zings me into the day. And that looks like different for everyone. Like sometimes I need a really long practice. And sometimes I'm like, I don't have capacity. I got to do these things on the go or in the car or whatever. But I am, it's work. So I
Hmm.
really do try to come back to the work daily.
And what does the practice look like for you? Like, what is that ritual?
Every day it's different, honestly. But for me, foundations that are important are things like moving my body,
Hmm.
moving emotions. Sometimes I'll journal, sometimes I'll do yoga, but like it depends. But for me also mindset's really important, like I said, because if I want this goal, like whether it's a business goal or relationship goal or personal, I have to get underneath the mindset of it of why am I resistant to this thing? So mindset for me, I'm obsessed with. I try to do it every day, try. And I do my celebrations every day. Like I really do my like even to myself, I do my brags. I kind of digest the day before. I intend on like what's my intention, what's the flavor for the day. So that's kind of like how I start my day. And like I talked about, like I try to keep the intention top of mind, whether it's setting alarms or like what is the flavor for today? Is like finding pleasure, finding joy, at peace. So I always try to set an intention too, and then like to the best of my ability, remember what that intention is.
Yeah, I love it. So your routine is really making space for yourself and having those little tools that you'll use within that space, but having that kind of inward moment in the morning that kind of gives you that baseline for the day.
Yeah, I need it. I just know
Yeah.
I function best with it, you know?
Yeah, totally. I totally understand. Is there a song that when you're feeling a little like less confident or maybe less energetic for the day, do you have a song that if you put on, you'll start your mood will completely change and you'll feel energized?
Yeah, I love this. I have a whole confidence playlist on my Spotify
I can
because
imagine.
yeah, because I'm like, oh, so I have a whole list of like, oh, got to ramp up, or with my mindset work, like, okay, like how can I believe in these things? Like I have a whole playlist of things that get me going. But yeah, I do. I'm trying to think. I have a lot of pop, a lot of sassiness. Those are usually the songs that like get me jiving. But I usually
Yeah.
rotate through a few. But I always have a few that help me get back up. Music for me is such a transformative tool. Such a
Hmm.
transformative tool.
Is there one song that you can think offhand that you,
Oh, yes. I can't think of a song because my ADHD brain likes to shuffle them all, but I love RuPaul always gets me.
oh my gosh,
RuPaul's
okay.
music always, I'm like, yes, like it lifts me up. Ariana Grande,
Mhm.
yeah, those like Dua Lipa, like those some of those artists just like I'm like I sometimes they're corny, but they they bite me up, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, I mean, I love corny, so
Yeah,
it's
same. I'm like, yes. I'm like, I'm gonna be cringe right now. I love it.
Is there something that you've purchased in the last year that has made a difference in some way in your life, like just kind of around 100 or less, that the audience might benefit from knowing about?
Yeah, I. Ooh, this is such a good one. It's funny. I'm always gravitated towards the self help tools, but I'm a person that does ClassPass. That
Yeah,
ClassPass, yeah, and I love it. Just especially because I just moved to a different state, and I love it for community sake. I have like the lower tier membership, and I like that I could be in different communities. I could try different yoga studios, so that has been a very powerful tool for me. And I'm a really big book person, book and audiobook. So anything of that nature kind of helps, like how you said with the song, like that's also could be activators for me. So the song could get me into a space, or reading a passage from a book, or listening to that audio book. Like I always have those like little tools by me when I'm like, ooh, I notice I'm dipping. Not to be like I'm toxically positive, but like, I have those, like not those talismans or those activators, if you will, to kind of boom, like get me back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love ClassPass. I had it for a while, but I kind of put it on hold for a little bit. But you're right. I mean, it gets you out, especially moving to a new place. It gets you out and you
Yes.
meet new people, you try different places, get works for you, and you might join something later. Or if you like the variety, just kind of keep going with the ClassPass. But I used that when I moved here to Miami Beach just to kind of get involved in the community. It was an easy way to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, this is like you said, for community, changing things up, learning about people,
Yeah.
and just moving my body. So I was like, that
Yeah.
has, and I do the low tier one, but it's just for me to get out. And so yeah, that I think is a great $100 or less
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
one.
And you mentioned books, and one of my next question was, is there a book about confidence or pleasure or not
Yeah.
that you might recommend to the audience that you found a value?
Yeah, I know I mentioned it. Well, I love books, so I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go through it. But I know I've mentioned her name a few times, but it's for a reason. Any book by Regina Thomashour, and I think she's coming out with another one soon. In my opinion, no, everyone's human, but she really has some beautiful insights, and she's worked with so many women, and in regards to self-love and confidence. So if you're looking for something with body love, confidence, she really does speak to me. Ooh, what else? Yeah, I'll leave it at that. But there's so because I'm like, oh, I could spiral
No.
out on this question.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I mean, one book is all I ever look for. And I do have some guests that are like, oh, this book and this. But so no, please don't feel pressure to say anything more than that. That's all I expected. So so we've reached the end. And so lastly, you are now part of our audience's hype squad. Is there any last piece of wisdom, advice, inspiration you would leave with everybody before we end?
Yeah, I do. Well, first of all, I'm so grateful that everyone, listened to this point, because I think it's super important, this conversation we had, and thank you seriously for having me on. Yeah, for me, I think something that's a huge guiding force in my work is, and it may sound like, oh, a little ooh, but like the fact that we are not promised tomorrow.
Mm.
And so for me, being comfortable with death and with all of that, like, not to go on a different path, but like for me being comfortable with, I'm not promised tomorrow. I hope, God willing, I'm here for many years, like, please, but like, I'm not promised tomorrow. I really, and again, of course, we have to do the things, we have to pay our taxes, we have to, do the things that we have to do to human, but it really has put me in perspective. So many of the tragedies and the things that have absolutely put me to my knees, in a way, was a great gift, because I was like, wow, nothing is promised to me. Mm-hmm. And so I want to live. I know we're all alive, but I really want to live. Like, I want to turn back, hopefully when I'm 120, or like, but I want to turn back when I'm 100, however old I am, and say, I lived. I want to get every little nugget out. I want to be present. I want to be there for beautiful conversations. And I think if you've made it this far in the conversation, you also want to live and live your best. So stereotypical, but live your best life. Mm-hmm. And I just want to remind everyone that that's possible, and that we don't have to be in the mundane. We don't have to just keep on keeping on. There's a place for that's appropriate sometimes. And magic and being alive and being present is such a gift that I would love for more people to wake up to.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's such a great note to end on. So yeah, thank you for being on. If our listeners want to reach out to you, or if they want to find you, where's the best place for them to do that?
Sure. So I'm pretty active on Instagram. That's at @WeTheLight_LLC. And my website honestly has everything. So it has my podcast, blog, and all my free goodies. So I have a free book, I have a free consultation, and then also whether if people want to work with me one-on-one or in group settings. And you can get that at my website, which is www.wethelight.org. And that's all the goodies you can kind of find there.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Erica. This has been such a great conversation. I've had such a fun time. And this is, again, we started out, it's so important for so many people to hear. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing everything that you've shared.
Of course, thank you so much. This was amazing.
Well, I hope we stay in touch. And like I said, we have so much more to talk about. Hopefully we can do a part 2 sometime. But I hope you have a good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. This is Michelle again. If you enjoyed this conversation, hit subscribe so you don't miss out on our weekly episodes. And if you're really feeling it, please leave a review. We'd love to have your support. You can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter, where we share things we're excited about, things we found funny or inspiring, and must-read leadership videos and articles we came across that week. You can subscribe by going to www.thebosstrack.com/weeklyjoy. That's www.thebosstrack.com/weeklyjoy. Drop in your email and you'll get the very next one. Thanks for listening.